Well, good morning, everybody. Until about 1929, the United States had a program that many people called the orphan train. It's because thousands of homeless, orphaned children were just living on the streets in the big East Coast cities. And so every year, thousands of those kids were put on westbound trains and shipped across the US. They think as many as 250,000 children eventually rode those orphan trains. And the trains would stop in rural areas, and the orphans would be brought out for viewings, lined up on the station platforms, advertised in the paper, and some of them would be selected by parents, and that would be that. The adoption would be final instantly. Well, a man named Lee Nailing, as an elderly man in 1991, wrote about it, his experience as one of those orphans, as an 8-year-old, and this is an actual photo of him as a child. Lee was taken with his 2 younger brothers and put on a train in New York. At one stop, someone adopted one of the younger brothers, and Lee and his other brother moved on. Finally, a family selected the 2 of them, but the next day decided to keep just a little one and send Lee on. Back on the train he went. And then Lee was adopted by a farming family, but the next day they had misgivings and put Lee back on the orphan train. And Lee says his little heart was just about to break. And then he was taken to the home of people he calls a tall man and a short, plump woman, the Nailing family. And he goes to bed that night making plans to run away from them. Next morning, he comes down for breakfast, and I'm going to read you the rest of the story as he wrote it. He writes, I watched as they both bowed their heads. He'd never seen anybody say grace before a meal. He says, Mrs. Nailing began speaking softly to our father, thanking him for the food and for the beautiful day. It amazed me to hear somebody talking to God as a father. And then Mrs. Nailing thanked God for me. I stared at her as she began to smile as she prayed, and a strange warm feeling began to fill my aloneness. As I looked at the empty chair next to me, I thought maybe in some mysterious way, this Our Father was seated right there and was listening. He says, after breakfast, as they walked me to the barber shop for a haircut at the end of the street, we stopped at each of the 6 houses on the way, and each time the Nailings knocked on the door and introduced me as our new son. This is our new son. Just wanted to introduce you to our new son. 6 times. He says, as we left the last house, I knew I would not be running away. I had the strong feeling that I had found not 1, but 2 new fathers, and that I could talk lovingly to both of them. And he writes, that's the way it turned out. Isn't that beautiful? Maybe on your train ride through life, you've felt rejected. You've been rejected at times. Listen to what is true of you now. It's a verse we read yesterday in church, 1 Peter 2:9. You are a chosen people. You are royal priests, a holy nation, God's very own possession. So you can show others the goodness of God, for he called you out of darkness into his wonderful light. That is who you are. That's what you're destined for. And so go through your day to day with confidence in your identity as a beloved child of God in Christ.